Hi, church. The story of Esther has all the elements of an amazing movie. You know, I hear that Sight and Sound, by the way, is doing Esther. So we have to get up to Pennsylvania and see the Esther at Sight and Sound. But in Esther, you have tragedy and loss. Xerxes, the king, will get some really bad advice and make some really bad decisions. Vashti, his queen, will make a good decision to not parade in front of the drunken men and then be deposed. In the story, you have human love. Mordecai, the hero, will adopt his cousin, Esther, and make her his daughter. Esther, out of all the women in the kingdom, will be chosen to be the queen. She's courageous and respectful and humble. There's plenty of surprises and twists. And today we're going to learn, or this weekend we'll learn about a guy named Haman. We're coming to the turning point in chapter 3. The first two chapters kind of laid the groundwork, the setting, but we find ourselves now in Persia. It's about 500 years before Christ. But now in chapter 3, the heat is going to be turned up big time. There's going to be an evil plot against the Jews hatched. There's a great verse in 1 John 4:4 that says, "Greater is he that is in you than he that is in this world." Now, many people don't understand the context of that verse. The verse before it says, "This is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard about, is coming and is now in the world." We live in a world that is at best indifferent and at worst hostile to believers. I think about our brothers and sisters in China, of how there's talk of a diplomatic boycott at the 2022 Olympics in Beijing. Why? Because of their human rights violations. When Mao took over in 1949 in China, they dragged the Christians out into these what's called public denunciation meetings. They tried to make them recant, threatening them with imprisonment or death. And the believers went underground, and the church has flourished and grown in China. Well, we're living in what I call the ABC America. A, anything. B, but. C, Christianity. We're living in ABC, post-Christian America. And there is great opposition to the church. I wanted to set your mind as we prepare for this chapter 3 of Esther by talking for a little bit about the ancient rivalry between Amalek and Israel. Do you know that when Israel came out of Egypt, Amalek attacked them from the rear? And Moses' last sermon was, don't ever forget what Amalek did to Israel, how they tried to snuff out our kids. So Joshua would fight against the Amalekites, and now Saul was given this directive from God. This is what he said. Samuel said to Saul, "I am the one the Lord sent to anoint you as king over the people of Israel. So now listen to the message from the Lord. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came out of Egypt. Now go and attack the Amalekites and totally destroy everything that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put them to death." Very clear instructions. The Amalekites are everything that's evil. Wipe them out from the face of the earth and you won't have a problem. Either you take them out or they're going to take you out. But the story begins to shift in verses 8 and 9. But Saul and the army spared Agag, the best of the sheep and cattle. So what happens is they take out the Amalekites except for their king, because there's high prestige in getting the king. There's also great value in keeping the sheep, and the cattle. So Saul does not obey the Lord. So early in the morning, Samuel got up and went to meet Saul. He said, and he learned that Saul had gone to Carmel to make a monument to himself. So not only had he disobeyed God, but he got to make a statue of himself at Gilgal. When Samuel reached him, and Saul said, "The Lord bless you, Samuel. I've carried out the Lord's instructions." And here's a little bit of humor in the Bible. Samuel said, "What is this bleating of sheep I hear? What is this little bah, bah? Or what is this lowing of cattle, moo, moo, I hear? If you've obeyed the Lord, there should not be a sound of sheep or cattle." And so he explained to him that he had kept the best for the Lord, which was really not true. And then Samuel said these words, Does God delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Here was Saul with an opportunity to take out the enemy, and he chose to keep their king and the best of their sheep. God would be more pleased if we heard his voice and obeyed him than we made a sacrifice of these lambs and cattle. We're going to talk this week about how the ancient Amalekite king Agag, Haman is a descendant of, and now he is going to bring a plot against God's people. And we're going to talk about manipulation and how manipulation works. We're going to talk about what would happen if this plot had succeeded. Look forward to seeing you Sunday as we unpack Esther chapter 3.